Imagine that you're on a boat at approximately these coordinates. You're in the Pacific Ocean just slightly off the coast of Chile and Peru in South America. Then, imagine you got in a submarine, submerged all the way to the bottom of the ocean, and then drilled all the way through the Earth out to the other side of the world and came up on the other side. After doing all of that, you would still find yourself inside of the Pacific Ocean, specifically the Gulf of Tonkin, just off the coast of Vietnam and China. The Pacific Ocean is so massive that it contains several of its own antipodes, or spots on the opposite side of the world that remain in the same ocean. But we're just getting started here. There are parts of the Pacific Ocean that stretch across more than half of the planet's surface, but the longest continuous stretch of water spans between the islands of Indonesia and the coast of Colombia. This stretch is nearly 19,800 kilometers long. This is such a huge distance, you could fit the entire diameter of the moon between it. Actually, you could fit 5 moons in this distance, and still have room left over. Zooming out to this view of the Pacific from above on Google Maps can give you this image, which gives the perception that it takes up almost half of the planet. However, this image is deceiving, because in reality, you can never really see half of the planet at the same time. Since the Earth is shaped like a sphere, there's a point where the planet begins curving out from your field of view that's called the horizon. Here, you can see 2 separate ways to divide the world's surface between 2 equal hemispheres. Most of us are probably more familiar with the Eastern and Western hemispheric view of the world, but this view isn't really based on anything other than the British, who decided that they were the center of the world back in the 19th century. In this new division, the world is divided between the water hemisphere and the land hemisphere, the 2 sides of the world that contain the most water and the most land. The Pacific takes up most of the water hemisphere, and in total, this entire half of the planet is 89% water, 5% polar ice cap, and only 6% dry land. If you were stranded in the oceans on this side of the world, it might indeed be a while until you ever discovered land. Now, with all of that being said, in purely numerical form, the Pacific Ocean is 165.25 million square kilometers in surface area, and that's a challenging number to visualize. So think about it this way: the surface area of every single continent of land in the world combined, from North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, Antarctica, and even throwing in Greenland just for good measure, is only 148 million square kilometers. This means that you could fit every single continent in the world together inside of just the Pacific and still have millions of square kilometers left open. Indeed, the Pacific isn't just huge across, it's also huge below. It's the deepest of any of Earth's oceans. The Challenger Deep in the Marianas Trench is the deepest point in the world that we're aware of so far, plunging nearly 11 kilometers beneath the waves. And other trenches have points that reach very similar depths. The Tonga Trench, Philippine Trench, and the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench all have spots over 10.3 kilometers deep, and the mean depth across the entire Pacific is over 4,000 meters. The average depth in the Pacific is over 2,600 times deeper than the deep end of an average American swimming pool. With all of that size and all that depth, the Pacific alone contains 710 million cubic kilometers worth of water, which is roughly 50% of all the world's oceanic water. All of this puts into perspective how ridiculously bold the ancient Polynesian explorers really were. They sailed out into an unknown and uncharted ocean bigger than all of the world's continents combined, bigger even than an entire planet, just in the hopes of discovering some new islands. And discover they did. The Pacific is home to over 25,000 distinct islands spread out across almost incomprehensible distances. But already by the year 1200, the Polynesians had reached virtually all of them from their original starting point back in Taiwan. Some of these islands continue to be absurdly remote and difficult to get to even today, let alone 1,000 years ago. The Pacific Ocean is so vast and so empty that it contains many of the most remote and difficult to get to places in the world. Take Honolulu in Hawaii, for example. This is the most remote city with a population over 100,000 people anywhere in the world, because the nearest other city of comparable or greater size is San Francisco, over 3,800 700 kilometers away, about the same distance as New York City is away from Los Angeles. The Polynesians still found it over 700 years ago. Easter Island is arguably the most remote inhabited island in the world, because it's over 2,000 kilometers away from the nearest other piece of land, and that piece of land happens to be Pitcairn Island, which itself is an absurdly remote, hard-to-get-to island in the middle of nowhere.